The unexpected ultimatum. The afternoon sun poured through the wide windows, casting a golden hue over the dining table. The scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air as I stacked the last of the plates. Laughter echoed from the living room, where my husband Ethan chuckled at a joke his father had told. It was a seemingly perfect Sunday, until she spoke. "Isabel, dear," my mother-in-law Vivian leaned in, her voice smooth, sweetened with artificial warmth. "I think we both know this can't last." I blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Excuse me?" She exhaled as if this conversation pained her, resting a manicured hand on my arm. "You and Ethan, this marriage, it was fun while it lasted, but it's time to be realistic." The silverware in my hands suddenly felt heavier. My heart pounded in my chest, but outwardly I remained still. Vivian had never been subtle in her disdain for me. The passive-aggressive remarks, the pointed comments about real class and proper upbringing, I had endured them all. But today, she had dropped the pretense entirely. I tilted my head, forcing a neutral expression. "Realistic?" She smiled, her expression one of false pity. "You don't belong in this family, dear. You're not the right kind of woman for my son." There it was. The truth, laid bare. I should have been shocked. I should have been hurt. But instead I felt something unexpected, amusement. Vivian had no idea. No idea that the house she so proudly boasted about, my house, was bought with my money. No idea that the business she dismissed as a hobby had long since outgrown Ethan's career. No idea that while she looked down on me, I had been quietly building an empire. She thought she was delivering an ultimatum. She didn't realize she was already too late. The perfect wife replacement. Vivian sighed dramatically, adjusting the expensive bracelet on her wrist. "Ethan deserves someone who compliments him, Isabel. Someone from a respectable background. A woman who understands our world, who can elevate him socially." I placed the last dish into the sink, wiped my hands on the towel, and turned to face her fully. "And let me guess, you already have someone in mind?" Her smile widened, triumphant. "As a matter of fact, I do. A lovely young woman from the Kensington family. Old money, well-connected, someone who won't hold him back." I almost laughed at the ridiculousness of it all. Vivian wasn't just trying to push me out, she had already planned my replacement. "You expect me to just step aside?" I asked, arching a brow. Vivian's gaze turned icy. "I expect you to know your place." Ah, there it was. She had mistaken my silence over the years for weakness. She thought I was a woman who would crumble, who would walk away quietly while she played matchmaker for her son. She truly believed that I was nothing. That I was disposable. I smiled, not the defeated smile she expected, but one that should have made her very uneasy. "I understand perfectly," I said smoothly. Then, without another word, I walked away. Vivian thought she had won. She had no idea she had already lost. The game she never knew she was playing. That night, I didn't mention the conversation to Ethan. I didn't need to, because while his mother was busy plotting my exit, she was standing in a house she didn't even own. Vivian loved to flaunt our home, showing it off to guests as if it were some grand achievement of their family's wealth. She had even hosted lavish parties here, making it seem as though Ethan had provided this life for me. The truth? I had purchased this house before we were married. With my money. In my name. Ethan's paycheck barely covered the property taxes. And yet, Vivian was under the delusion that I was the one who didn't belong. I let her enjoy her little fantasy for now. After all, what's more satisfying than watching someone unknowingly destroy themselves? Vivian's push for divorce. Over the next few weeks, Vivian grew bolder. She whispered in Ethan's ear at every opportunity, planting seeds of doubt. "Isabel just doesn't understand our lifestyle, sweetheart. Wouldn't you be happier with someone who truly fits in? It's not her fault, of course. She just comes from a different world." Ethan, clueless as ever, would laugh it off. "Mom, please, you're overthinking things." But I wasn't laughing. I was watching, waiting, and then she made her move. One evening, I overheard a hushed conversation between Vivian and Ethan in the next room. "She's not right for you," she urged. "You've given her enough. It's time to move on." And then, the final blow. "If you divorce her now, I'll make sure you walk away with everything." I nearly laughed out loud. She truly thought she held all the power. She had no idea. Letting them dig their own grave. That night, as I lay in bed next to Ethan, the man who had unknowingly allowed his mother to wage war on our marriage, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was amused. Because they had already lost. They just didn't know it yet. The first crack in Ethan's perfect world came the next morning. As we sat at the breakfast table, he scrolled through his phone, completely oblivious to the storm brewing. "You're quiet today," he mused, taking a sip of coffee. "Everything okay?" I smiled, watching him closely. "Everything's perfect." And it was. Because I had made my decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't even going to fight. I was going to let them win. Or at least, let them think they had won. Because what's more satisfying than defeating your enemy? Letting them dig their own grave first. The first move. By the afternoon, the first text arrived. "Vivian. Ethan and I had a lovely lunch today. He agrees it's time to move forward." I smirked, letting the message sit unanswered for an hour. Then another message. "I hope you understand, Isabel. This is what's best for everyone." Best for everyone? No, Vivian, this was only best for you. But I played my part. I typed back 2 simple words, "I understand." She must have nearly dropped her champagne glass. I could already picture her delight, the way she would call her friends, gloating. She took it so well, she knows her place. Finally, Ethan can be with someone worthy of our family. Oh, Vivian? She truly had no idea. By the time they realized what they had truly lost, it would already be too late. The silent battle begins. Vivian believed she had won. After all, I had smiled, I had nodded, I had even agreed with her. She must have thought I was already preparing to leave, quietly accepting defeat. That's the thing about women like her. They mistake grace for weakness, silence for submission. But the game wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. The whispered manipulations. Vivian wasted no time pressing her advantage. She spent the next week chipping away at Ethan, each conversation, another drop of poison, another carefully planted seed of doubt. "She doesn't understand our world, sweetheart. Wouldn't you be happier with someone who truly belongs? I know you love her, but love isn't enough, Ethan. You need a wife who enhances your status, not one who drags you down." She was smart, I'll give her that. She didn't demand he leave me. That would be too obvious. Too crude. Instead, she framed it as concern, a caring mother gently guiding her son toward what was best for him. But I knew Vivian's game better than she thought. She was testing him slowly, pushing him to see how much she could get away with before he hesitated. And Ethan? He had no idea he was being played. Ethan's growing distance. At first, the changes were subtle. He started coming home later than usual, lingering after work without explanation. His conversations became clipped shorter. He would scroll through his phone at dinner, answering with vague hums instead of words. Then, the real sign, he stopped making plans. We had always talked about trips we wanted to take, projects for the house, little dreams we had together. Now? Nothing. Like he didn't see a future with me anymore. But the real confirmation came on a quiet evening when he thought I wasn't listening. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard the murmur of his voice from the hallway. I paused, towel wrapped around me, listening through the crack in the door. I don't know, Mom. Maybe you're right. A pause. Then, maybe Isabel and I just want different things. There it was, the moment he let doubt sink in. Vivian had gotten exactly what she wanted, but she had no idea what was coming next. The final push. It happened a few nights later. I was curled up on the couch with a book when I heard Ethan pacing in the kitchen. His fingers drummed against the counter, a nervous habit he had when he was trying to convince himself he was doing the right thing. I didn't move. Didn't acknowledge the way he kept glancing toward me, like he was waiting for the perfect moment. Finally, he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Belle, can we talk?" I closed my book. "Of course." He hesitated, like he was expecting resistance. I think we should separate." I tilted my head. "Oh?" That wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Ethan had prepared for tears, for anger, for me to fight for him, but all he got was calm curiosity. "I just think we've grown apart," he continued, clearing his throat. "We're on different paths, and maybe it's time we face that." I nodded slowly. "I see." Another hesitation, his brow furrowed. "You're not upset?" "Should I be?" I asked, standing up. He blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Well, I mean, this is a big decision." "Yes," I agreed. And it seems like you've already made up your mind. I walked past him heading to our bedroom, pulled a suitcase from the closet and set it on the bed. His face paled. Wait, you don't have to pack tonight. I just meant, but I was already folding clothes, moving with quiet efficiency. Let him think I was hurt. Let him think I was retreating. Because while Ethan believed he was freeing himself, he was actually walking straight into the biggest mistake of his life. The House of Lies. That night, I checked into a luxury hotel. One that Vivian loved to brag about, the same one where she had hosted charity galas and afternoon teas. The irony was delicious. I ordered a bottle of champagne sitting by the window as I watched the city lights twinkle below. Tomorrow morning, Vivian would wake up believing she had won. She would sip her coffee, smiling to herself, probably already making plans to introduce Ethan to his perfect match. Meanwhile, Ethan would feel relief. He would think he was starting a new chapter unburdened by me. But neither of them had realized the truth. That the house Vivian adored, showing off to her wealthy friends, it was mine. That the money funding their extravagant lifestyle wasn't from their family's wealth, it was mine. That the empire they had mocked for years, the one Vivian had dismissed as my little business, was actually worth more than anything they owned. By the time they figured out what they had truly lost, it would already be too late. The first realization, I let my phone buzz all morning. Calls from Ethan, from Vivian. I ignored them all. Then just after 10 a.m., a text appeared. Ethan, we need to talk. Something's wrong with the house. I smirked, taking a slow sip of my coffee. It had taken him less than 12 hours to start panicking. But I wasn't done yet. I let the messages pile up. Ethan, why is the bank saying my name isn't on the mortgage? Call me now. I didn't. Let him stew. Let him feel the weight of his own choices. Then, at exactly 3 p.m., my lawyer sent me a simple message. He called. He's realizing the truth. Let me know when you want to respond. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. Not yet. Let him sit in his confusion a little longer. The moment it all falls apart. It wasn't until the next evening that Vivian herself discovered the disaster. My lawyer forwarded me another message. Vivian just called. She's furious. She claims there's been a mistake. I could almost hear her voice. What do you mean my son's name isn't on the house? Vivian never considered the possibility that I had been planning this for years. She had spent so much time trying to erase me from Ethan's life that she had never stopped to think. What if I was the one who erased them first? And now, they were about to find out exactly what that felt like. The unraveling begins. Vivian woke up that morning feeling victorious. She likely poured herself a cup of imported tea, settled into her sunlit dining room, and sighed with satisfaction. She had done it. I was gone. Ethan was free. The grand plan she had orchestrated, removing me from their family, finding her son a better match, was falling into place effortlessly. But what Vivian didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that her carefully crafted world was already crumbling beneath her. And by the time she realized it, it would be too late. Ethan's first taste of reality. At 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. Ethan, we need to talk. Something's wrong with the house. I smirked at the message but didn't respond. He must have been so confused. He had walked into what he thought was his home, expecting everything to be as he left it. Instead, he was met with cold, hard reality. Because while he had been blindly trusting his mother's words, I had been preparing for this moment for years. Ethan, why is the bank saying my name isn't on the mortgage? Call me. Now. Oh, Ethan. It was adorable how he still believed he had any control left. I let the messages pile up, let him stew. Then, at exactly 3 p.m., my lawyer sent me a simple text. He called. He's realizing the truth. Let me know when you want to respond. I took a sip of my wine, watching the city skyline from my hotel suite. Not yet. Let him suffer a little longer. Vivian joins the chaos. By evening, the second explosion came. My lawyer forwarded me another message. Vivian just called. She's furious. She claims there's been a mistake. I could almost hear her shrill voice through the text. What do you mean my son's name isn't on the house? Vivian wasn't just angry. She was panicking. She had spent years controlling every aspect of Ethan's life, ensuring that he never faced real consequences. But this was out of her hands. because no matter how much she demanded, screamed, or insisted that there had been a clerical error, the reality remained the same. Ethan owned nothing. The house, mine. The investments, mine. The business she had mocked for years, worth more than their entire name combined. Vivian had tried to erase me. Instead, I had erased them. The showdown at the house. The following afternoon, I decided it was time. Time to let them see just how thoroughly they had played themselves. I pulled into the driveway of what they had always called the family home, stepping out of my car with deliberate ease. Ethan was already there, pacing. Vivian stood beside him, her perfectly polished exterior starting to crack. The moment she saw me, her face twisted with fury. "You," she spat, marching forward. "You think this is funny?" I raised an eyebrow. "I think it's long overdue." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his expression torn between confusion and desperation. "Claire, just explain this," he said. "Why is your name the only one on the mortgage? Why is the bank telling me I don't own anything?" I gave him a slow, measured look. "Because you don't." Silence, a slow, suffocating silence. Then, Vivian exploded. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked. "You tricked him. You manipulated my son into—" I turned to her, my voice calm, unshaken. "Tricked? No, Vivian, I simply planned ahead." Her eyes widened, realization dawning. She had spent so much time trying to control me, trying to push me out, that she had never stopped to consider. What if I had been planning my escape this entire time? Ethan's breaking point. Ethan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Claire, let's talk this through. Maybe we can work something out." I smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile he wanted. "Oh, Ethan," I said lightly. "We already did." And then I dropped the final bombshell. "You signed a prenup," Vivian gasped. Ethan's face drained of color. What?" he stammered. "The prenup," I repeated slowly, savoring the moment. "The one that legally protects my assets, my business, and my property. The one you signed willingly." A perfect, satisfying silence. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He turned to his mother, who was now visibly trembling. You told me I didn't need to read it," he whispered. Vivian looked as if she might faint. I took a step forward, lowering my voice just enough so that only they could hear me. "You wanted me gone," I said softly, "so I gave you exactly what you asked for." I let the words settle before delivering the final blow. "So tell me, Ethan." I tilted my head. "Why aren't you happy?" His eyes burned with regret. Because he knew. He finally knew. The aftermath. Vivian didn't go down quietly. 2 days later, she stormed into my office, pushing past my assistant. "This is your fault," she hissed, slamming her hands on my desk. I leaned back in my chair, unimpressed. "What exactly is my fault?" "You ruined my son's life. You took everything from him." I tilted my head. "No, Vivian, you did." She blinked. "Excuse me?" I stood, stepping around my desk. My voice never wavered. "Ethan trusted you. He let you manipulate him into thinking I was disposable. He let you convince him that I was holding him back." I took another step forward. "But tell me something, Vivian." I narrowed my gaze. "When you promised him something better, when you told him to leave me," I paused. "Did you ever stop to think, what if you were wrong?" She paled. I let out a soft chuckle. "No, you didn't, because you never thought you could be wrong." I let my final words sink in. "But now you have to live with it." Vivian staggered back, silent for the first time in her life. Then she turned and walked out. That was the last time I ever saw her. Moving forward, Ethan tried calling me, begging for a second chance, but I wasn't in the business of saving men from their own arrogance. I blocked his number, and I never looked back. Because in the end, Vivian was right about one thing. I was never good enough for their family. I was better. The final blow. Ethan had always thought he was in control. He believed that because he was his mother's golden boy, life would always bend to his will. That no matter what happened, Vivian would be there to clean up his messes, to smooth things over, to ensure he always came out on top. But what happens when the person he trusted the most, the one whispering in his ear, pulling the strings, was the very reason he lost everything? Ethan was about to find out. And I was going to sit back and enjoy the show. Vivian's meltdown. It didn't take long for the consequences to hit full force. A mere 24 hours after our confrontation in the driveway, Vivian was already scrambling to fix things. First, she called the bank. I could imagine the conversation. "There has to be some mistake. My son owns that house. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the mortgage is solely under Claire's name. That can't be. He's lived there for years. That may be, but legally, he owns nothing. Vivian had spent years parading that house around, acting as though it were some grand family estate passed down through generations. Now, she was realizing the truth. It was never hers. It was never Ethan's. It was mine. By that evening, I received yet another text from my lawyer. Vivian just called. She's demanding to know how this happened. I chuckled, sipping my wine. Let her panic. She was so used to controlling everything, to bending reality to fit her delusions. But reality wasn't something she could manipulate. Not this time. Ethan's life falls apart. Ethan, on the other hand, took a bit longer to fully unravel. For the first day, I think he still believed that somehow, some way, he could fix this. He must have thought I would break, that I would come back, apologize, beg to work things out. That illusion shattered when he tried to access our joint account. Ethan, why are my cards declining? I let the message sit for an hour before responding. Me, because they're my accounts. Your name was removed last week. His response was instant. Ethan, you can't do that. Me, actually, I can. You should have read the prenup you signed. Silence. That was when reality finally hit. I hadn't just left. I had cut him off completely. And the best part? There was nothing he could do about it. Vivian's desperate attempt to save him. Vivian refused to accept defeat. After all, she had spent years protecting Ethan from consequences, ensuring he never had to struggle like the rest of the world. So she did what she always did. She meddled. And this time, she went too far. She stormed into Ethan's office, demanding to speak to his boss. Ethan deserves a promotion. He's been loyal to this company for years. Mrs. Reynolds, this is highly unprofessional. Unprofessional? Do you know who my family is? Do you know the connections I have? What Vivian failed to understand was that the corporate world doesn't care about entitlement. Instead of getting Ethan a promotion, she put a massive target on his back. And HR? Well, they started digging, and what they found was worse than anyone expected. The corporate betrayal. Ethan had always played fast and loose with company expenses. Dinners that weren't really business-related. Personal purchases disguised as client gifts. It wasn't outright illegal, but it was enough to raise suspicion. And once the company started reviewing his expense reports, it was over. By the end of the week, Ethan was called into a meeting, and an hour later, he walked out unemployed. Fired. Without severance, without recommendations, just gone. That same night, my phone buzzed. A text from a mutual friend. You won't believe what just happened. Vivian got Ethan fired. I let out a slow, satisfied breath. Vivian had spent years controlling her son's life. And now, she had destroyed it. Ethan's last plea. For 2 days, Ethan didn't reach out. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he thought he still had time to fix things. But then, late one evening, my phone buzzed again. Ethan. Claire. Please, can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment. I didn't owe him anything. Not my time, not my sympathy, but curiosity got the best of me. I answered. Ethan. He exhaled, almost in relief. Claire, I messed up. I know that. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch. I don't know what to do anymore. His voice cracked. I thought we'd always be okay. I thought you'd be there. I finally spoke. You thought your mother was right. A pause. Then softer. Yeah. And there it was. The truth. For the first time, Ethan admitted what I had known all along. He had chosen to believe his mother over me. And where had that gotten him? Nowhere. I didn't want to hurt you, he added weakly. But you did. Silence. Can we meet? He asked, almost desperate. I closed my eyes. There it was. The final attempt to pull me back in. But he didn't want me. He wanted security. He wanted the life he threw away. And I wasn't in the business of saving men from their own arrogance. So I said the only thing that mattered. No, Ethan, we have nothing left to talk about. Then I hung up, blocked his number, and I never looked back. The aftermath. Vivian wasn't done embarrassing herself. 2 days later, she stormed into my office. This is your fault. She shrieked. I barely looked up from my desk. What exactly is my fault? You ruined my son. You took everything from him. I leaned forward. No, Vivian, I said. You did. She blinked. Excuse me? I stood, voice unwavering. Ethan trusted you. He let you convince him I was holding him back. But tell me something. When you told him to leave me, did you ever stop to think? What if you were wrong? She paled. I gave her a slow smile. You didn't. Because you never thought you could be wrong. Vivian staggered back, speechless. And then, she turned and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw her. Freedom, Ethan? He tried to rebuild, tried to act like he was rising above everything. But without me? He struggled. The job market didn't care about his family name. Women weren't interested in a man who had lost everything. And Vivian? She had become a pariah. Her meddling reputation ruining any last shred of influence she had left. And me? I had never been better. Vivian had spent years trying to convince me I wasn't enough for their family. And in the end, she was right. I wasn't enough. I was better. The collapse of their perfect world. Ethan had once been untouchable. At least that's what he believed. He had spent his life sheltered by his mother's influence, moving through the world with a confidence that came from never facing real consequences. Until now. Because this time, there was no one left to save him. And Vivian, the woman who had spent years pulling the strings, she was about to realize that all her power, all her connections meant nothing when the empire she built was made of glass. And I was going to watch it all shatter. The inevitable gossip word traveled fast. I had barely stepped into my office when I received a text from an old acquaintance, one of those socialites who thrived on juicy scandals. "You won't believe what's happening." I took a sip of my coffee. "Try me." The response came instantly. Ethan lost his job. But that's not even the best part. His mother tried to get him another position, and she got blacklisted instead. I nearly choked on my drink. Vivian? Blacklisted? The woman who had spent decades crafting her reputation, making sure her name held weight in high society? I leaned back, amusement curling at the edges of my lips. Oh, this was good. Vivian's fatal mistake. After Ethan was fired, Vivian had panicked. She had stormed into boardrooms, made angry phone calls, and tried to cash in favors she thought she still had. What she didn't realize? She had burned more bridges than she built. For years, people had tolerated her out of necessity, not loyalty. Now that she was desperate, they turned their backs on her. And when she tried to force a company to hire Ethan, threatening to ruin their reputation, they had simply cut her out instead. No more invitations. No more favors. Vivian Reynolds had gone from a powerful woman to a social liability. And for someone like her, that was worse than losing everything. Ethan's desperation days passed, and Ethan's texts became more frequent. At first they were angry. "Ethan, you destroyed my life. I hope you're happy." I ignored them. Then slowly, the anger faded. By the end of the week, the messages had changed. "Claire, I don't know what to do. Please, just talk to me." He was spiraling. Lost, because for the first time in his life, he had no backup plan. And the one person who had always been there to catch him had let him fall. Vivian's last stand. It took 2 weeks before Vivian cracked. She showed up at my office, stormed past my receptionist, slammed my door open like she still had authority over my life. I didn't even flinch. I simply set down my pen and looked up at her. "Vivian." My voice was calm, measured. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" She was furious. "This is your fault," she snapped, her voice shrill with desperation. I arched an eyebrow. "My fault? You ruined my son." She slammed her hands onto my desk. "You took everything from him." I leaned back in my chair. "No, Vivian." My voice was quiet but firm. "You did." She stilled. "What?" she breathed. I stood slowly, stepping around my desk. "Ethan trusted you. He let you convince him I was holding him back." I took another step closer. "But tell me something," I said, tilting my head. "When you told him to leave me, did you ever stop to think, what if you were wrong?" Vivian paled. She opened her mouth. No words came out. "Because she knew." "She knew." I smiled. "You didn't, because you never thought you could be wrong." Silence. For the first time in her life, Vivian Reynolds had nothing to say, and that was the sweetest victory of all. Ethan's final attempt. The last time Ethan called, I almost didn't pick up, but something inside me, curiosity perhaps, made me answer. I stayed silent. He exhaled shakily. "Claire," I said nothing. I messed up," he admitted, voice hoarse. "I was an idiot. I let my mother." He broke off, swallowing hard. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I had everything figured out." I closed my eyes. "And now?" I asked softly. He let out a bitter chuckle. "Now, I have nothing." I could have told him he deserved it, could have reminded him that he chose this, but I didn't, because in that moment I realized something he already knew. And that was enough. The final goodbye. "Claire." His voice wavered. Can we meet, just to talk? I opened my eyes, staring out at the city skyline, and I smiled. No, Ethan. My voice was gentle but unyielding. We have nothing left to talk about. A pause. Then, almost desperate. Claire, please. I hung up, blocked his number, and never looked back. Vivian's fall from grace. Vivian tried to recover. She tried to act like she was still in control. But without her social influence, without the money and status she had spent years flaunting, she became nothing. Her calls stopped being returned. Her invitations disappeared. She had spent years trying to convince me that I wasn't worthy of their family. And in the end, she was the one who had been erased. Moving forward, months passed. I thrived. My business expanded, my life flourished, and most importantly, I was finally free. One evening, at an event, I spotted a familiar face, Melissa. The same woman Vivian had once paraded around as a better match for Ethan. She hesitated, then approached me. I owe you an apology, she said softly. I raised an eyebrow. I believed her, she admitted. I believed that you were the problem, that you were disposable. She swallowed hard. And then I saw what she did to Ethan, and I realized that could have been me. I let her words settle. Then, with a small smirk, I gestured around. Well, I said. Welcome to the little empire Vivian tried to destroy. Melissa chuckled. She underestimated you. I nodded. A lot of people did. And that was their biggest mistake. The ultimate truth. Vivian once told me I wasn't good enough for their family. And in the end, she was right. I wasn't good enough. I was better. The ultimate victory life has a strange way of proving people wrong. Vivian had spent years convincing herself that I wasn't good enough for her family. She had believed with every fiber of her being that I was disposable, that without Ethan, I would crumble. And now, as I stood in the middle of a beautiful venue surrounded by laughter, success, and genuine happiness, I realized something. I had never needed their approval. I had never needed them. And the best part? They knew it too. The ghost of a man I once knew, I almost didn't go to the event. A close friend was celebrating the opening of a new business, a grand launch party full of high-profile guests. I had debated skipping it, choosing instead to spend the night relaxing. But something told me this night would be worth it, and I was right. Because the moment I stepped into the grand ballroom, dressed in confidence and a stunning gown, I saw him. Ethan. He was barely recognizable, slumped at the bar, nursing a cheap drink, staring blankly at the crowd as if he didn't belong. His once carefully tailored suits were gone, replaced with an ill-fitted jacket and a dress shirt that looked like it had seen better days. His usual charm? Nowhere to be found. For the first time, Ethan looked exactly like what he had become. A man who had lost everything. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then his gaze lifted, and our eyes met. And in that single moment, I saw it, the regret. The kind of regret that settled deep in his bones. The kind of regret that whispered in his ear every single night, telling him exactly what he had thrown away. I gave him a polite, detached smile. Then I turned back to my conversation, my date. A man who actually valued me, wrapping his arm around my waist without hesitation. I let Ethan watch me move on. The conversation that didn't matter. I knew he would approach me eventually. He wouldn't be able to stop himself. And sure enough, not long after, I felt a familiar presence behind me, a hesitant clearing of the throat. I already knew who it was. I turned slowly. Ethan. His expression was strained, like he wasn't sure what to say. You look good, he said awkwardly. I smirked. I know. He shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. Guess you heard about everything, he muttered. I took a sip of my champagne, tilting my head. Yep. He let out a bitter chuckle. Guess you're happy about how things turned out, huh? I considered my answer. Then, with a small shrug, I replied, No, Ethan. I don't think about you enough to be happy or unhappy about it. The words hit harder than I expected. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Because he finally understood. I had moved on. And he? He was stuck in the past. The apology that came too late. Ethan exhaled heavily. I'm sorry, Claire, for everything. I wish I could take it back. I studied him for a moment. Then I sighed. You still don't get it, do you? He frowned. Get what? I smiled, a soft, knowing smile. I never needed your apology. He blinked, momentarily thrown off. But I raised my hand, cutting him off. Apologies only matter when they come before the damage is done, I said smoothly, not when they're an afterthought. His mouth opened slightly, as if searching for a way to argue. But there was nothing he could say, because deep down, he knew I was right. Vivian's final attempt. I thought that would be the last time I heard from Ethan, but I had underestimated his mother's desperation. Because 2 days later, my assistant knocked on my office door, looking unnerved. "There's someone here to see you," she said hesitantly. I already knew who it was. Sure enough, when I stepped into the lobby, there stood Vivian. She was a shadow of the woman I once knew. The carefully curated elegance, gone. The air of superiority, nowhere to be found. Instead, she looked tired, worn, defeated. "Claire." Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I crossed my arms. "Vivian?" She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "May we speak? Privately?" I considered her for a long moment. Then I nodded. I wanted to hear what she had to say. The confession. Vivian sat across from me, her fingers twisting the pearls around her neck, a nervous habit she probably didn't realize she had. Finally, she sighed. "I made a mistake," she admitted. I said nothing. "I thought I was helping Ethan," she continued. "I thought I was protecting him." I arched a brow. "By destroying everything he had?" She flinched at the bluntness. Then, she let out a weak chuckle. "I was wrong about you," she murmured. "I spent so much time trying to prove you weren't good enough for this family." She looked up, meeting my gaze. "But I see now, you weren't the one who wasn't good enough." Ah, there it was. The moment she finally realized the truth. I leaned forward slightly, voice cool and unwavering. "And yet, it took losing everything for you to see it." She nodded slowly. "I suppose it did." Silence stretched between us. Then she made her final request. "Is there any way back from this?" she asked softly. "For Ethan?" I exhaled slowly, tapping my fingers against my desk. Then I gave her the only answer that mattered. "Not until he realizes that he is the problem." She closed her eyes, as if she already knew, and she did. Because the truth was something she could no longer escape. Moving forward, months passed. Ethan tried to rebuild, tried to pretend he was thriving, but the job market didn't care about his last name. The women he pursued weren't interested in a man with nothing to offer. And Vivian? She had faded into irrelevance. Meanwhile, I thrived. I expanded my business. I found love again, real love. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. Because revenge was never the goal. Success was. And I had won. Not because I had destroyed Ethan, but because I had built a life so good that he no longer mattered. The ultimate truth. Vivian once told me I wasn't good enough for her family. And in the end, she was right. I wasn't good enough. I was better.